If you've got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Cyber Frontiers, number 60. We are live February 11th, 2020. Our first Cyber Frontiers of the new year, even though it's middle of February already. I think
it's the best time of New Year.
December 10th was our last show. If you're listening live, we want to welcome you to it. I know there's a few of you out there. I got a couple notes from a few of you who said you'd be joining us, so we'll give it a few minutes. If you got the recorded version of this, just hang tight. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes, and we wanted to go live just to get all the gremlins and all the notifications, all the emails, all that other stuff. Get that out to you. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. I'll bring a well, you won't have time. I was going to say I'd bring a ceremonial cigar to the wedding, but hey, Joe, you won't have time. When my brother got remarried, I went by and bought some, and he just didn't have a chance. It was just so busy, that day is just so crazy. Crazy day. Joe, thanks for coming out. I think Ken is going to join us here in a little bit as well. And heard from a few of you out there. Make sure I got the notes up here. Let's see, how do I get into this thing? All right. You just want to start with your first article on the very top. You want to go through this in chronological? Okay.
Yeah, I mean we can hop around a little bit. The top few are kind of the intro lead in. There's a very common. All of these things are in support of the themes.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Navigate where we want.
Yeah. No, right on.
Any one idea here.
Right on. If you're in the chat room, drop us a note. I didn't bring up I should probably have brought up the chat widget for this. Let's see if I'm still, that's a StreamYard link. Let's see, let's go to it here. View on YouTube. Stop that. And we look good. Video looks good anyways.
Well, ever since I hardwired this desktop, all my problems have gone away.
A little bit better, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Good. Yeah.
Well, and I fixed that dying USB controller on this board. Was why the Wi-Fi was so unstable. It wasn't the Wi-Fi at all. It turned out to be the USB bus was going to hell in a handbasket. So
yeah, going to a slow death.
I threw in one of those cheap $30 USB 3 4-port cards on the PCI Express bus, and everything just kind of stabilized out.
Did its thing.
And I was like, thank you.
Did its thing. Yeah, no, you've been since you fixed that, you've been super clear, man. It was bad.
It was really
bad. Yeah. It was really bad for a while.
I feel bad for blaming Cox. I really don't feel bad for blaming Cox at the same time, because there's other things that I hate with a fiery passion about them.
No, I understand. They keep trying to get me to upgrade to the Giga Blast or whatever.
Giga Blast. You know what the funniest thing about the Giga Blast service is? What's the funniest thing? You should know this. You should totally know it.
No, I don't know.
The funniest thing is, without a doubt, the fact that they still have a 1 terabyte data cap.
Oh, yeah.
On their gigabit plan. On their gigabit plan.
No, I know.
I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so
all it means,
all it means is I can use the same internet. It just be done sooner. It's like,
run out faster. Thanks.
Like, why would I pay for that? If anything, I'll pay and downgrade my bandwidth so that I don't hit your stupid cap as quickly.
Yeah, I think I've been. I think now that Sammy is back in school, like when she's home over the summer, man, I come dangerously close to that cap because all she does is watch YouTube and.
I think the closest I came was 1 gigabyte under the cap, and I was like, "Ooh, how exciting!"
Oh, I've blown through it a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't miss out. They say they just threw the banner up. Yep. Gigablast, our fastest internet service ever. Get gigabit. I mean, I'm already paying $100, basically 97 something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they want to tack on another, I don't know, $15, 10, $15 maybe for gigabit. For
I just feel like
Gigablast.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So my plan goes through well, I guess the cycle ends today. And I've only used 37%. So, but there's been some months where I just, for whatever reason, just blew through that. Ended up paying is it $10 per?
No,
Is it
at
$50?
least for mine,
No.
it's $50.
I think you can increase it in increments of something for 50 gig for $10, something like that. They'll do it automatically.
I think that's
for you.
Yeah.
Up to the unlimited, which is $50
Mm.
if you go unlimited. Uyghur's still on the unlimited plan.
Yeah.
So
let's see, what is my usage here?
I'm on their Premier 200 package, which I think is supposed to get me 200 down and
20 up.
I think I'm still 10 up.
Oof.
No, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I piped down my usage, it looks like. But it was brutal for a while.
I don't think, for a while I was checking all the time. And I get the biggest month I've had in the last 3 was 595. So 595, 384, because my daughter was home, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's Christmas break. And then 380. So I've been kind of low. Haven't been hitting that, but I don't know. Let's see what the Gigablast is. So I think I'm 97 now, and if I wanted to upgrade products, Gigablast, internet, Gigablast. If I wanted to do that, see what they're going to charge me. Spinning wheels. That's not great when you go to your internet service provider and their please wait, their plans take about 7 or 8 seconds to populate.
Feature.
Oh my God. So your current price plus $28 for Gigablast. Up to 940 is what they're saying. Yeah, no, I don't think. Should I? Let's chat live with now. Let me chat live with them and see if I can talk them down. Like, I don't know. Why would I? What's the difference? Oh, plus. So, and then for $58 more, I can get a 500 gig data plan with them. So that's another $30 for 500 gig. Like
Fios would make so much money if they just came into all these areas. It'd be insane.
What?
It'd be insane.
What? It's so 30. I didn't know it was that expensive. I signed up for the notification when it came out. I was hoping maybe like 10 or 15. Or they just throw it my way and say, are you maybe I should put in chat, are you serious about here? Well, let's here, I'll screen share. Let's see if we can application. Okay, there we go. There's the prices right there. Look at that. And then let's give them some feedback here. No, I really don't. I want chat. Oh, there's the chat. So is it really another $28 to upgrade?
Is an amazing social experiment.
Gigablast seems kind of steep. Let's see what they. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you wrote. Could you please try rephrasing your request?
You got the bot.
Can you send me to someone real? Oh, this could be on what we're going to talk about tonight. This could be This could be.
I'm looking to add or upgrade services. That's what
I don't currently have Cox. Okay. Give me a moment while I locate. Yes.
Oh,
Live agent.
recopy that question, man. Get it ready.
Yeah, all right, hold on here. There we go. Whoa.
Oh,
Come
man.
on, come back. Come back. All right, here we go.
Hi, Nadia.
Nadia, how can I assist you? All right, here we go. Let's see if I can talk him down. Maybe I can get him. Maybe
we haven't done this before. We should pick a new live chat service to stream every time we get ready to do an episode. That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic. That would be. Hopefully, Nadia will not ask me any personal questions that I wouldn't want to put on. Well, noticed your browsing habits, Mr. Collison.
We gotta get auto blurring service. We can on demand blur the relevant portions of the screen.
Probably your phone number. Shoot. Yeah, no, I can't. Well, hold on. Let's drop the chat for a second. We'll pull that out here. And then okay, we'll see how that goes. I gave him that info. We'll see if it can scroll past it. Yeah, this could be a new segment for the beginning of Cyber Frontiers, as we just see who's paying attention. Go on Walmart's retail site and see what kind of support we get there. See what kind of deal they're going to give me here. Awesome. Deal. Thank you. Allow me a moment to look up your account. Okay, we'll give them a moment. Sure. But I am in sort of a hurry. Trying to watch. Let's see, what should I be watching on Netflix? Trying to watch the new T-Swift.
Oh man, I'm still a T-Swift fan.
The new T-Swift. Well, I'm just trying to get my phone number and password past the spot so I can show you. So you can show. Can you? Should I say, can you make me a deal? Can you make me a deal? What if they do like that?
And then we'll watch Jim Collison have a deal moment right on live air.
Oh, maybe I'll upgrade. You never know. If they maybe they'll say same price. That's the deal I take. Like same price for the first year. So if they say yes to that, then Joe says in the chat room, Better Call Saul season 4 just got added. So I could have picked that. I'll be picking up a new car this summer too. I'm pretty sure I'm getting a Subaru Outback. That'll be kind of fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be kind of fun. Okay, I have one more chat message in my past. My pin goes away. So hello. Here we'll do. Hello. Okay, good. I can bring it back in. There we go. Will Cox make a deal?
This is embarrassing. Totally embarrassing.
If they only knew.
I can't endorse the selection of Jim's Netflix preferences.
It's supposed to be a pretty good documentary.
I never said it wasn't.
Well, it's not. Would it be a documentary or would it be like
bio,
something like that? I take it you haven't watched. Oh, hello, yes. So she's.
Is the deal arriving?
Let's see. I feel
I feel good. No, I don't.
The excitement.
A great offer. She's gonna make Jim a deal.
Oh man, the suspense is killing me on this.
This is actually killing me. I'm interested now.
Joe says it's a hustle. They just sucker you in. Yeah, remember the deal is same or maybe less.
All right, so what did we say? We said it was 28.
Okay. 28 is 28 extra is what they want. I'm wondering if I say, I've been looking at CenturyLink. We should I should probably know what the CenturyLink prices are here in Omaha.
Yeah, they also offer the gigabit.
Oh,
Fiber gig price for life, $60 a month. How do you beat that?
Ooh. Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's use that to our advantage. I see that CenturyLink is offering 65 a month.
Wait, go back real quick because I scrolled down and I see 60 a month, but I might not be in the same.
It could be different market.
Yeah.
You see the 65.
Yeah.
You're seeing 60?
Yeah, I'm seeing 60. And I clicked into Omaha. Here's the link. I put it in StreamYard.
Okay.
If you click that link, I see a 60 deal for Omaha.
Okay, let's put that
advanced fiber technology.
Oh,
there she is.
With a free modem and free installation.
I mean, how do you beat that?
No, that's pretty great. Okay, let's see. Let's go back. I see that CenturyLink is offering
60.
Yeah, heck yeah. Heck yeah. 60 a month for the same service. Okay. Let's see. Maybe the goal is just to get them current plan because they really hate to move, just to be honest. Yeah. So maybe the plan is to get them just to lower my, see if I can get them just to lower my, I pay like 97. I get triple.
Oh my goodness. For $2 more?
$2.
Oh, Jim. How does that sound?
I don't, well, what about as far as the modem I'd like to provide, I don't know. What about the 60 plan at CenturyLink? That looks pretty good. How should I is it too early to throw in how about what I have now, or I'm at $60 or I'm leaving?
What are you currently paying?
97.
Does it include TV?
No, it's just internet. So
really?
we're apples. Yeah, we're apples to apples at this point.
Wow.
Think I could. I bet that I can get them lower than the 97 at the same. Let's see. Awesome. Would you like? No. I need a better deal than that. How about
price matching CenturyLink's off?
Ooh, there we go. How about a price match to keep? Whoa! What?
Jim, they pulled out of the deal.
Okay, you saw this. We have it recorded. Was I inactive for 5 minutes, or the agent? Oh,
no, the agent disconnected.
Or the agent disconnected. Not, man. Just because I said no, I need a better deal. They didn't want to work with me.
They didn't want to work. It's $2 a bust, man. Final offer.
Man, $2.
Savage takedown. Dun, dun, dun.
It's $2 or bust. Final offer. No soup for you, says Joe. I got it handed to me.
He definitely slammed the door on you on your way out.
Man. All right, hold on. It's not over. Let's give the service. Your feedback is important. How likely are you to recommend? Well, not at all. Like, when it's kind of was resolved with that. No, definitely not. Was the agent friendly? Strongly disagree. Did the agent know? The agent listened to me? No, strongly disagree. The agent showed a willingness to help. Strongly disagree. The agent was knowledgeable. We'll just disagree on that one. They didn't work with me on a super sweet deal.
Super sweet.
I expected more. Let's see if that gets the customer service folks all riled up at Cox. To maybe they'll email me back or something.
Jim Collison sees a $28 a month increase, gets a $2 a month increase, then gets denied.
Man. Jeez, come
on. You had me this close to wanting to just cancel this show and do this again on my Cox plan.
I know.
See what happens. I'm excited.
Hey, I hear all the time people say like they called to try and disconnect, and if you got to kind of spend some time with them, and the trick is probably to do it over the phone.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I told you my Cox story. So after you bundle stuff, right? I had the TV and the internet bundled, and after like 1 year and after 2 years, these discounts start to disappear, and all of a sudden your stuff goes up. And at one point, my bill jumped from like $140 to $198 a month, and I'm like, Yaga. And I realized all the like expirations for like HBO Cinemax, which I haven't watched once, so why am I paying for them? All went away. So I called, and they refused to give me a package without them. They're like, we just can't bundle it with it's that or nothing. So I said, okay, then I want to cancel all my services and just have internet for $99 a month. Let me know when you're going to come by and pick up the modem. Left it at that, hung up, get a call back 20 minutes later from another person. I think we can figure out a way to get this done. I'm like, oh, really? And then it was down to my bill got then $10 cheaper, and I lost the channels, but it went from $198 to $137. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah. Well, see, I think I could call and threaten to leave, and I might be able to get it down to the point. What would be great is if they would just say, I'd even take 6 months. Like, you know what, we'll match it. I'm like, look, just match their price. I don't want to change anything. Just make my current internet $60 a month and I'll stay. Otherwise, I'm going to go, hey, they got everything. Free modem. They're going to come out. It's out of free install. They want the business. And I'm going to get the speed I want. You guys have a chance just to keep me as a customer and match their price. What are you going to do? So I think that's maybe after the show we'll try again.
Call up the CenturyLink. It's time.
Maybe. My son just went to CenturyLink from Cox. He got so tired of and I haven't really had bad service. Don't get me wrong, but
does CenturyLink do data caps?
Well, let's look.
Because if no, then it's game over. I mean, you should switch tomorrow.
Maximum download speed, wire price rate. Let's look at the offer details here. Hold on. You probably won't be able to see this.
Yes. CenturyLink has a 1 terabyte data cap. Overage fees $10 per 50 gigabytes. This sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't they? In this, especially here's the gigabit. Why wouldn't they when Cox already has set they're not gonna.
Fios and Xfinity don't.
Here's the fiber. Yeah, but in this market, and in this market, we don't have that kind of service. Prepayment, modem, credit check. Yeah. So I'm sure it's 1 terabyte, which to be honest with, I don't really have a problem, with going with that because you just saw my Cox, or I just talked about my Cox internet I only use 500 maybe, except when
Yeah.
my daughter's here, so I rarely go over.
No,
But
there's a DSL reports form back from 2017, so dated, but DSL reports form was saying that people who bought the gigabit CenturyLink service used between 3.2 and 3.8 terabytes a month without a word from them. So
Ken says here's the deal. This is what Ken says. Current service, $60, no data cap, or I'm gone.
That's a tough bargain right there, man.
I know.
I don't even know if there's a human on the other end of the phone that would know how to turn off that data cap. They might have to like write a special code release for you.
Probably, you don't think it's a little check mark inside that they've probably buried that so deep so they don't have customer support people doing it? I
don't even think they lift the data caps for like a business Cox account. I don't think so. I don't know. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, I can't storage. Yeah, I can. I hear you, man. Man, if I had unlimited, Uyghur's paying the $50 for unlimited, and he's always like, "Just come over." There was some times I was getting close. He's like, "Just bring your stuff over. You can download it at my house." Like, he's like, "I'm unlimited." So, all right, we better get started here. Let me kick this thing in. And thanks for maybe after the show, I'll try the support again at Cox to see if I can get.
Wow, we could patch in the live phone call on air.
Yeah.
Do a Google Voice.
I could do it over the. Can I call? Can I call out on the Echo? No, I don't think I can.
If you have it turned on, you can. Yeah.
Can I?
If you have it set up, just go to your Alexa app. Takes like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not as. I want to do it through chat. Like that's the fun. Although
that's where Jim's deal harnessing is at.
Yeah. I got denied. I totally got denied on the first go around. All right,
got swatted.
Let me. Well, the hard part is then I have to provide authentication. They're going to make me, and I have to mute that. I guess I could. So, all right, let's kick this off. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Cyber Frontiers show number 60, recorded on February 11th, 2020. Here on Cyber Frontiers, we explore cybersecurity, big data, and the technologies that are shaping the future. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can always send us an email. Send that to me, Jim@theaverageguy.tv. You can contact Christian. He's really the brainchild behind this. Christian at theaverageguy.tv. Find me on Twitter at Jay Carlson, and Christian is at Borg Whisper. Of course, theaverageguy.tv, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Plans start as little as $10 a month for all kinds of great stuff. MapleGrovePartners.com. I think Uyghur took you up on your email offer too. I think at $5 for email hosting. Was that you or maybe?
Oh yeah,
yeah. He loves it.
We'll price match any other email plan if you're bringing something new over. So make it happen.
He's digging it as well. Christian, we've titled the show Adversarial Machine Learning. I don't think I've ever had a show title actually ready to go at the very beginning of a show.
Amazing, right?
I just
advanced planning.
And actually, these are the best show notes I've ever seen. So make sure you head out to theaverageguy.tv/CF 060, I think is what will get you there. And you'll want to see these show notes as well. What do you mean by adversarial machine learning?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to do some storytelling tonight, but really adversarial machine learning, I'm increasingly convinced, is the largest undefined area of the cybersecurity industry, right? So when we say that cybersecurity in large has like hugely gained in visibility in the C-suite, et cetera, we're talking about like your bread and butter issues of what people understand as common enterprise grade cybersecurity today. Or protecting consumers and consumer grade security. Where we're talking about adversarial learning is really what I call on the frontiers of cyber, period, because it covers an area where we are rushing into the future of the technology and security is not the primary consideration. And when I think about the technologies that we now find to be commonplace today that we take for granted, we did the same thing 20 years ago where we rushed into those technologies and then we had to bake in layers of security after the fact on top of it, when the reality was that the protocol or the service or the technical standard was never designed for security, just wasn't baked in from the get-go. And so we've talked about on the show ad nauseum about, where we are with data science, where we are with ML, where we are with AI. And we've talked about the capabilities, and we continue to run forward, 200 miles in a given direction. And I saw an article this week that just really made me think, oh, this is something we definitely need to talk about on Cyber Frontiers. Without a doubt, it's an area that is really going to be defined after the fact, because we have committed ourselves so greatly to the technology without committing ourselves to securing that technology. So an article came out February 3rd, 2020. And it was entitled, "An Artist Used 99 Phones to Fake a Google Maps Traffic Jam." And I just thought that was the most fascinating thing I'd heard in a while. Not because it was like you required like a man in a science lab, some amazing genius to do it, but because I just thought, what a cool and weird and unusual experiment that the average guy could go and do and have this type of broad scale impact. I mean, this article got coverage everywhere in tech blog circles. And I thought, that's kind of interesting to me that many people care about this. And what the guy basically did was he bought 99 cell phones. He rented them or bought them, whatever he did. They each had unique SIM cards, unique IDs, unique operating systems, etc. He loaded up Google Maps onto all of them. He placed all 99 phones in a little red wagon, like you would imagine pulling a toddler down the street with. And he starts walking around the block of the Google Berlin campus in Germany. And what you start to see in his YouTube video that he's chronicled is that as he's walking down that street, Google is showing, how when everyone turns on their Google Maps, when you live in a big area, like here in DC, man, if you don't have Google Maps or Waze on and you're a rush hour commuter, like what are you doing? And so, he's got all of these map apps open and he's walking around the city. And you know it like I do. When you're driving in the car and you're looking at Google Maps, you're looking to avoid those, double bar red lines when you're cruising down the street. And if the Google algorithm is smart enough or realizes that there's as much distress as what traffic shows, chances are it's going to automatically recommend, hey, I'm going to reroute you because you're about to run up against the double red line. And so here, this guy has basically recreated a DC like traffic jam when there's not a single car on the road. And so he's walking around with his little, toddler red tote in the back, and he's like circling around the Google campus to see if anyone at Google notices the strange phenomenon of this giant traffic jam reported on Google Maps. And, humorously, he talks about how roads were virtually empty, cars were getting redirected around his traffic jam, and there wasn't a single car on the road while he was walking by. And so I just thought to myself, this is such I love painting complex problems that we're going to face with dirt, stupid, simple stuff like this. And this is brilliant, right? Like anyone could go and set up these devices and do this. I think it takes a certain level of creativity to do it and a certain amount of resources and fund money. I think this guy had all of that going for him in his favor. And this just made my week in terms of an article. But it brought up kind of this bigger theme of, are consumers, yet alone the enterprise, really prepared to handle this world where we are becoming increasingly reliant on artificial intelligence to power our daily lives? Whether it's how we're getting to and from work, whether it's what types of financial transactions we're, day trading, whether it's our cars, our self-driving cars getting us from point A to B. We are just becoming increasingly reliant on these, algorithms that operate things that we think we've automated ourselves out of a job, right? The dream of any software engineer is to be able to automate yourself out of the job, because it means you've reached some kind of, core code complexity where either your service is of value greater than you maintaining it, or you've cracked the holy grail of artificial intelligence where it can become self-writing and self-describing. So I wanted to open it up because once I peeled this onion a little bit deeper to talk about the kind of the relationship to our average daily lives, there is just example after example of this kind of thing going on. And it's evident to me that there is very little in the way of a security model. I mean, it's virtually untested. You will find so many academic papers that talk about the issue as it stands, which it's been getting increasingly published about in the last couple of years. You won't find a single paper that proposes much in the way of a solution to how do you stop basically what I call adversarial machine learning. It's what academia calls it. And it's really kind of this fundamental notion that with very small, well, it's two things. It's two things. I want to be clear about that. Number one, it's this use case where I just talked about where you introduce sensors into an environment, or you mutate or alter sensors into an environment such that you've taken control of an algorithm to do something that wasn't designed for its intentful purpose, or you aren't mucking with the sensors or the capability of analyzing that data, but you're introducing something into the environment with a slight variance such that the algorithm is absolutely convinced that that thing with a slight deviation is the same or correct thing. And that one is the much scarier adversarial use case that I want to talk about a little bit more, because to the human eye, for example, it might look completely normal, but to an algorithm, it might look completely different. And so we are getting to this place as well with what I call it synthetic adversarial machine learning, which is when we scope the problem to AI and the visualization aspects of AI. Producing synthetic data examples is a classic way of basically fooling a deep neural network into thinking it's seeing something that in reality isn't in the environment physically from what a human would assess, but the algorithm assesses it to be because some slight variant that was introduced that in reality isn't real. And so these things that we're introducing as topics have a lot of cultural footprint, is being talked about culturally, but the solution map is totally non-existent right now.
Christian, before we dive into that, let me ask you this question, because I feel like sometimes the machines don't get the benefit of the doubt. So a human gets fooled all the time, by the way. I mean, something tricks us. I mean, just magic, right? In some regards, a sleight of hand. We weren't looking, we weren't seeing. Human gets fooled. And it's fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? But that the first time, the human, they don't get blamed. They're like, oh, it was a trickster or whatever. I don't feel like the machines get the same benefit of the doubt sometimes. In other words, they have to be perfect out the gate, or people are like, this is never going to work, or, look how bad this is. I'm not sure as we begin to get into these complex neural nets and some of these other complex algorithms that have to work, are we going to expect that machines get it perfectly every time, especially when machine learning is used against them, or you have one algorithm pitted against another, maybe in that case? I don't feel like we have the same tolerance for the machine as we do for the human.
But there's a reason for that. And think about it. Humans don't scale. So we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt that humans are allowed to be faulty, because usually when a human's at fault, their blast radius is limited to their circle. When a machine is at fault, their blast radius is potentially infinite and can span the entire human population. Yeah. So when you assert or claim to assert that a machine can reasonably operate at or better than a human, you should be damn well sure that is a correct assertion, because that's going to impact how you end up with scalable disasters and how quickly you have to respond to them.
Yeah.
And I think that any litmus test or operational bar for introducing an AI algorithm, a machine learning implementation, or otherwise at scale should be held to the measure of what would be the worst thing that happened if this thing went sideways, or what is the testing confidence that we can give based on running X millions of simulations that tells us the probability of catastrophic scenario X is 0.00009% probable. And if you can't get it down to that, if it's like you're dealing with a 1 to 10% error rate on something that has broad scale impact, and on top of that, you have no security algorithm to define a model of defense in that disaster scenario, we're setting ourselves up for undoing a lot of the progress that we've made in the cybersecurity industry, predominantly because people will stop caring as much about going after the soft targets that were 5 years ago, right? When we talk about what are the soft targets today, they've changed quite a bit from what they were 5, 10 years ago. And why? To me, it's not that the technology drastically changed in this time frame so much as it is people's ability to handle incidents, better defend systems, better secure and design them from the onset improved dramatically in that time frame. But the underlying technologies didn't have a fundamental gravity shift. What we're talking about here is quite different. We're saying that the technology is zooming off into a direction of a fundamental sea change, and especially with respect to how humans will adopt and use the technology. And we're saying that cybersecurity is not running in parallel as aggressively after that new technology domain. So yeah, it's great that everyone has cybersecurity awareness. It's great that they've gone and defended what we talk about today better, but people are just going to stop paying attention to going after exploiting that domain. They're going to start focusing more and more on what are high value impact things that have this large surface area. And we talk again and again and again on the show about how surface area is one of the number one measurements by which you should assess whether or not you are dealing with a large scale securities consideration or small scale, right? Because your typical average hacker, unless we're talking something where you're a high value target, it's a specific target of interest and they're going to go after you no matter of what, right? It's like any other crime on the street. It's a crime of opportunity. And so when you ask yourself as an attacker, what's the low hanging fruit here? It's going to be fooling that AI algorithm, which for very cheap can return a lot of fun and profit for me as the attacker. And I don't even necessarily need to know much about computers, which is the most bizarre thing to say. And yet seems like it could increasingly be the case where I don't have to write code to attack these systems. I don't have to be an internet wizard. I don't have to do any of that. I just have to interact with physical materials in my environment to influence something that is a virtual decision maker and have an outcome that is tilted in my favor as a result. And that's insane when you think about it. I mean, for the first time that we can really say there is active interest in people using physical, what I would call material science, with some very high level understanding of computer science without having to, have a university degree in it by any means. And now I can influence a virtual environment or a virtual outcome using my own physical world. I mean, it's insane.
Do you think that gets better over time? It gets more secure over time? I mean, are we doomed? It seems like we've been saying this for a long time. Are we doomed to repeat that the innovation stays just far enough ahead that the cybersecurity side of it can't keep up and it's always trailing 5 or 10 years? Is that always going to be a reality, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an untested battlefield. We talk about how AI itself is improving cybersecurity by having, machine learning based capabilities to detect adversarial threats. And that's, great news. But I think this new area where we're talking about what I call cyber physical interactions, how does a cyber domain interact with physical entities? We're much less developed and mature in that space. And it seems to me that because our technology capabilities are so strong, but our focus is not like everyone feels like they're the business of yesterday if they're not somehow using the buzzword AI in their bottom line, right? Like, think about that. Like, we are just like, all C-suites are probably having daily meetings saying, wait a second, guys, like, where are we bringing in the next level of predictive capability or automation or AI for either our customers or our business? And if they don't have a good answer to that question, people say, well, go find an answer to this question. Like, these technologies are already available. People are integrating them. They are becoming very cheap and inexpensive. And so we get to this point where we have to ask ourselves, is it as expedient for them to invest in securing the artificial intelligence right now as it is for them to just invest in the AI? And the answer is, well, of course not, because there's no real strong commonplace solution available today for this is how I'm going to address the fundamental of the issue, right? If I talk about how do I secure your average home consumer, I can immediately rattle off 3 very low cost, easy things. Go buy a firewall, go buy yourself some antivirus, go buy some cute little Internet of Things device monitor that, makes sure everything is patched and the firmware is good. And these are cheap things, right? Low cost. I can mass scale and produce them. The barrier to entry and the education for the average person is very low. None of those things are holding true right now with this particular domain.
Christian, what about when we think about, this machine learning has to be taught? And what happens when it gets taught? Like, we think we're teaching it the right things.
Yeah.
But we're actually teaching it the wrong. I think we've seen some pretty interesting examples of that.
Yeah. And well, so this hits on the exact definition of like, what does it mean to be adversarial in machine learning? And so the intention is, a lot of these models that we can talk about, let's just scope it to the world of neural networks, right? Where we've tried to make deep neural networks that are self-learning, that learn from past examples and past mistakes. They have their own method of error correction of what the algorithm predicts as error correction or optimizing to an ideal case based off what it's being trained to detect or understand in its sample literature. And over time, its sample literature grows and grows and grows. But remember, at the end of the day, those things come down to math. And so this is like a forest through the trees problem, where if an algorithm over time starts to cluster these types of trees to all be this, species of tree, then to an algorithm, if I make a slight mutation on the color of each of those leaves, algorithm's probably going to say, that's still, deciduous tree X. But a human's going to go and say, I've never seen a tree with blue leaves in my life before. That can't be any species I know of. But to the algorithm's perspective, hey, my color pixel values are, statistically 99.9% similar, or the gradients are similar, or the contrast is similar, or the brightness is similar. The size and shape of the tree is similar. The height is similar. The roots are similar. The type of soil it's growing is similar. And so all these values start to get added up over time, where let's say an algorithm now takes into consideration over 100 different features that it measures. And, maybe those distill down into 20 kind of special focus features that the algorithm decides, hey, yes, I can measure these 100 things, but really it's only these 20 things that matter, right? And I, as an adversary, pick up on one of those features that, if tweaked ever so slightly, a human's not going to care or notice, but an algorithm is going to completely change its meaning. And so a classic example of this that you can find in the show notes is, researchers that fooled a Google AI appliance into thinking a rifle was a helicopter. And so as a human, you're like immediately baffled by that statement, right? No human that you know of is going to look at a rifle and say that's a helicopter, right? But then like we start to unravel like the adversarial example, right? So what's really happening? Well, all these image-based algorithms, I have an image that I present to it, okay? And you know how like image error correction works, right? So you've all maybe at one point or another lost or found some photo that you wanted restored to its great former glory or whatever. Like, and what's one of the stupidest algorithms you can think of for an image error correction? Well, if you want to increase the quality of the picture when you don't have a higher resolution available, or you want to correct regions that are quote unquote statistically incorrect, one of the simplest algorithms you could apply is to look at nearest pixel values. So if it's a gray here, chances are it would be a gray in 1 pixel to the right, 1 pixel above, 1 pixel below. If I take a picture of, I don't know, a dog running across a field, and I'm missing 40% of that image, and I have the dog, but I don't have the rest of the image. Well, AI can probably fill in pretty quickly what the rest of the grass looks like in that image and what the rest of the sky looks like. So even with a, 40% data missing error rate, I could apply this very simple algorithm to restore that picture. Now that's a trivial use case, but let's talk about why that matters to adversarial machine learning, right? So let's say I have a picture of two people skiing, and this is one of the examples that's covered in this article from Wired. Two people standing on a mountain slope. They have their skis on, they have their hat and their hood on. You can imagine a mountain range in the back. It's a nice snowy day. It's got a good coat of snow on the ground. And I just ever so slowly introduce the picture of a border collie, right? 1% translucence, 2% translucence, 3% translucence. And all of a sudden, the AI algorithm starts seeing features in that data that you're presenting that say, oh, this is a picture of a border collie that we have here. But to a human eye, 5% translucence underlaid over a picture of two people standing on top of a snow mountain, you're not going to notice it. You'll be lucky if maybe around 30 to 40% of that translucence value where you would actually see some hidden border collie behind the image. And yet all of a sudden the classification algorithm will go from two people chilling out on a mountaintop to border collie. That's a little bit of a less trivial example, but it's the same concept. How do I fool a classification algorithm into thinking a gun is a helicopter? I just tweak those features ever so slightly. Or I tweak that sensor ever so slightly to record values that aren't really there in the environment, or to make slight mutations that a human trying to validate it would not be able to see or error correct.
Do we get to the point where we need to sometimes the perception's too sharp, right? In this example where you're saying, hey, look, it's 5%, a human would not make that determination. We shouldn't, being the algorithm, where it doesn't either, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got to have a little bit of tolerance. Will that get smarter? I mean, will we get, the more examples we have of that, the more mistakes we make? Almost like this machine learning is children, really young children right now, who don't really understand. I think about my granddaughter and some of the things she says, and we think it's cute. It's wrong, but it's cute, right? Mm-hmm. Now she'll get better because we say, oh, you don't say it that way, you say it this way. Much like, though, a child who was given misinformation from their parents, taught one way versus another, maybe taught to hate, begins to take on some hate tendencies.
Sure.
Right. And that take on some, So do you think, as we approach this, is that, yes, the vulnerabilities, but do we also need to set some expectations on the learning cycles so that these bots that get racist don't, like, we just turned them on and like, well, let's see what happens. Do we need to do a little more training or a little more time?
Well, so it's interesting. So the thing that I think makes this such a unquantifiable problem space yet is, how do you train an algorithm for all types of pollution? Yeah. Right? So right now, what we're really good at doing in AI is training to a set of use cases, right? What we're suggesting in order to defend that algorithm is one of two things. Either the features that the algorithm pick up on cannot be tampered with, and then you have to assert, well, what does it mean to tamper with this use case? And are we talking about tampering with sensors? Are we talking about tampering with like serialized data going into the algorithm? Are we talking about what is it that's going to tamper with that feature's natural evolution and learning what it is it's supposed to be learning? then what we're really talking about is there is a huge difference between tampering with an algorithm at the point where you're training it, right? Like offline training, you get it kind of caught up and then you set it out into the free world and it's learning from there, right? Whereas you're tampering with it dynamically after it's already deployed in some kind of production-like environment. The second question we have to ask is, so either we can solve the problem by getting the algorithm to assert that we have confidence that the features the algorithm cares about can't be tampered with, which seems unlikely, or we have to assert that we have come up with some type of algorithm that can handle all inverse cases from what the use case is that the algorithm is trained to detect. So if I'm trained to detect, I don't know, we'll take the previous example, a rifle going through a security belt, right? You want to scan people's bags and have, AI maybe replace some of the security functions that a TSA inspector would do, for example. What will you show that algorithm to show it all other things in the universe that are not the thing it's looking for? And that is the type of proof that you would have to go figure out if you couldn't solve the first proof, which is a positive-based proof of prove to me that the features that this algorithm relies on for positive identification cannot be altered in its environment. Like the delta would not be significant enough to change a training outcome. Or prove to me that you can show all potential things that would otherwise throw this thing off and add it to like a negative data set where the algorithm is going to know that that's a decoy bird, right? Yeah. So I like to classify this set, like if I were not to use the word adversarial machine learning, the word was invented like 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. Star Wars fans are going to, get me on my number here, but the term Jedi mind trick is adversarial machine learning. Absolutely. It is the same idea, right? Where it's like a slight alteration in your environment and suddenly you're doing something completely different. In Star Wars universe, they're slightly altering the Force and your brain cells aren't working the way you thought they were. But that's literally what we're talking about here in a machine learning sense, right? We're slightly altering the brain cells or the neural nets of these deep algorithms that are constantly reading in new data and making slight adjustments. And we're arriving at wildly different outcomes. So totally synonymous.
One of the things I see, I'm going to go off script a little bit on this one or off our notes a little bit. One of the things I see in AI is we often put these algorithms in or these learning opportunities in isolation. And one of the things humans do really well is we learn in packs. Like we learn from each other. We learn as you and I are learning, you're learning something and I may see what you learn and then learn from that. In other words, to get the validation, right? And I have lots of things around me for me to bump into, literally and figuratively, that keeps me learning at least from a norms perspective, and it keeps me from going crazy, like from learning something wildly off the, oh no, now I should run out into the street, right? No, we have people around us to say, when you're young, stop, right, to do that. We also have a thing called pain, which machines don't have, where they don't, like we're reinforced, bad behavior is reinforced or the incorrect behavior is reinforced, whether it's physical pain or social pain or shame or correction that comes in the form of something that really makes us change. Where I kind of wonder, this is the weakness of an algorithm, is it doesn't experience any kind of pain. It doesn't have a reason not to go down that behavior from incorrect training, type thing, hand on the stove. Even though I know it, I may try it the first time. Second time, somebody tells me to do it, I'm probably not gonna, because I have that lesson learned. So I don't know. It seems like we're training without any, at times, in isolation. We're training without social pressure, so to speak, to stay inside the guardrails. In 2 or in 3, we don't have any kind of feedback mechanism for the machine to remember, like, oh yeah, that was a bad decision, right? Am I that far off in thinking?
I mean, that's so part of the whole intention of deep neural network training is that there is that feedback mechanism that if it gets something wrong, or in a semi-supervised approach, right? It gets something wrong and you say, hey, you are wrong. It corrects and adjusts from that, right? It just comes down to
I feel like that's isolated though, a lot of times. In other words, we have one researcher who's doing that, who's working with it or whatever, where it's not getting the crowd, so to speak. I mean, if you ever want to figure out how right or wrong you are, just put something out right on social media, and that's a really bad example because I don't think you want to learn based on that. But, sometimes I feel like in this area, we've got a handful of researchers training it where they're not thinking through all the real world solutions or situations.
Yeah. And I think that's fair, right? There are plenty of people who do the kind of one-off rodeo machine learning example where it is that, but definitely some of the deeper AI examples overcome that, right? It's not semi-supervised, it's fully unsupervised learning approaches. And the question is, when you get to a fully unsupervised approach, can you truly pass a blush test that says my error correction rate or my false positive rate is sufficiently low enough that most permutations or disruptions in my environment is not going to be substantive enough to change the fundamental learning outcome of the algorithm.
Yeah. It takes humans, though, years sometimes to learn those permeations.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I sometimes wonder if we are not giving enough, even in a fully supervised, if we're giving it enough experience to have all the possible scenarios. That and then when it does land on it, we blame it, some really obscure, which a human would have missed in a long ways. It would have fooled us too. And we're kind of hard on the machine because of that,
Yeah, no, I mean, right on. It is one of these things where we will need to decide again, what is the formal evaluative criteria? And I think that is why you're finding that because there is no easy answer for the general use case, the answer is, quite honestly, to run away from it, right? In an article about another Wired article, by the way, they seem to be very on top of this subject, which I appreciate because anyone can go and buy a Wired magazine for a couple bucks a month and you'll learn these things regularly.
They're offering a $5 a year plan right now.
Oh, there you have it. I didn't even know that.
I just saw that. Yeah.
So, and it'll show up at your door. It'll be like the era before.
I think it's I think it's only online.
Okay.
I think it's the online version.
All right. Well, the title of the article is "Tainted Data Can Teach Algorithms Long Lessons." We just spent the last half hour talking about that, but one of these quotes is a very telling quote about what we've been discussing. Quote, "A recent survey of executives by Accenture found that 75% believe their business world would be threatened within 5 years if they don't deploy AI. Amid this urgency, security is rarely a consideration." So we've painted that brush, right? Like everyone sitting in the boardroom, they're trying to figure out how to get the next big sexy AI deployed out in the wild so that they can rake in the profits. And security is completely an afterthought in this case because most humans will say, oh, AI is still kind of that new edgy, trendy thing. Like, I don't expect it to be this secure, robust service yet. But in the same breath, people will be aghast if, Siri does something wrong or orders something wrong, right? So there's AI, quote AI, which is, again, become a way overbroad term, but we're just going to say AI. That we've come to know and depend on. And if you think about it, Siri is one of the biggest examples, or any type of learning assistant is one of the longest running examples of continuous learning and improvement, right? I think Siri over anything else on the market has had this huge leg up on being able to learn from past mistakes, right? I don't remember what year Siri was introduced. I know the iPhone was around 06.
No, so 2010, let's just say maybe.
Yeah, so let's even just say that, it's had a full decade of learning, right? And that data is powerful. And it's taken 10 years to kind of get to that level of maturity. But in the same breath, I can still find a bunch of ways to make it just not have an answer, which isn't the end of the world. But that's better than having it definitively do something in a positive action that is otherwise completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a difference between an AI service that just isn't mature enough yet to do what you want it to do, and something that is blazingly confident that it's doing the right thing for you, when in reality it's a polar opposite. And so the fact that there's just this huge rush to get the technology out, and there are not the formal proofs and rebuttals that we've discussed for the security mechanisms, this is a wide open surface area. And we're not going to see it just with the ML algorithms, right? We're going to see it with just basic sensor data. And those sensors might be feeding an AI algorithm, and it might be adversarial in nature, but there's plenty of examples where I don't have to have any kind of fundamental understanding of the algorithm I'm trying to coerce or influence. I just need to have an understanding of how the sensor works. A great example of this is the new hot Teslas, right? Their stock is going up big right now. Elon's feeling very confident. They can go 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. Your head whips back into the seat. You have this large, sexy display in the center that does virtually anything you could imagine on the road. And you're like, wow, my Tesla is just an amazing machine. It's an amazing feat of human engineering. And there's obviously been some safety concerns that have arisen from that. Like, what happens when you get pulled over completely intoxicated for a DUI, and the defense that you present to the judge is, well, the car was driving, so I couldn't have been DUI because I was in autopilot mode. Of course, that usually doesn't prevent you from getting arrested under suspicion of DUI, but it'll be interesting to see how that argument plays out in the courtroom. So what does Tesla have to do? Well, they go introduce a sensor that, every couple of minutes, if your hands aren't on the steering wheel, it's going to disengage autopilot. So you're not going to be sleeping on the job, or you're not going to be,
sleeping at the wheel,
having the T-Swift drink it up party of your life, which, Jim is thinking about for his next Cox streaming service.
Just saying.
But what do I have to do? I just have to prove to the sensor that I'm a loyal and safe driver. So what do I need to do? Find something with a little weight, find something with a little moisture, like would be on a human fingertip. So go to YouTube, and what do you find? People have found all sorts of creative solutions for meeting the criteria of that sensor. The most creative of which I thought was an orange. Let me shove a single orange between the top part of the steering column and the center where you would like honk the horn. Puts enough weight on the handle, got a nice little moisture on the top bar. You can cruise for hours on end because you're being a safe driver with your autopilot. So it's like, when we have put that level of sophistication and investment into these types of things, that, you're going to go pay at least $45,000 for a base model Tesla, up to like $130,000. And I'm not necessarily saying that that feature in and of itself is a deal breaker, but what happens when it's more than just I'm fooling my car's sensor to do autopilot? What happens when someone doesn't like you? They know you're a big value target. They know you have a lot of money because you went and bought a Tesla that cost you $130,000, and they want you gone. So what do? They figure out what your common driving patterns are. They figure out, you're usually on this road between this and this time, and they stick up some sign on the road. And that sign to that AI algorithm in your Tesla autopilot looks like a beautiful sign that says to stop. Only problem is you're driving 70 miles an hour on a highway, and your car just comes to a full stop. And the guy behind you is driving, more than 70 miles an hour because he wants to get home from work. And the next thing you know, you're in a total custom buy crash. Why? Because I mutated the environment ever so slightly. If I go and look visually outside, I'm not going to see a stop sign, but I introduced something arbitrary in that environment that to your Tesla said, holler down, all brakes on. So what is going to be the trade-off that we assess with the types of things that can lead to literally loss of human life? And how are we going to weigh that against ease, comfort, cost, accessibility, usability, right? And I'm not talking about the 99%, right? I'm talking about those 1% edge cases that become game stoppers, right? It's something that every company should be asking themselves when promoting any type of product responsibly that has these types of technologies, which is like, what is the worst case scenario? What is the probability associated with that worst case scenario? Like, do you even have a formal quantitative method of asserting that? And then, how are you going to reduce the risk, right? Okay, the risk is X. How do you get it to X minus Y? And I think we're going to find very quickly, we will get to a point where we'll be able to accurately measure X. We still don't have real world mechanisms that can be generically applied to get to a risk value of X minus Y. And that will cost us. And when we talk about the cyber domain, where systems will start being increasingly defended by AI over, signature based or whatever other method that is out there in traditional cybersecurity, it becomes the same thing, right? Now, I'm not talking about the cyber physical environments that I'm discussing earlier, but I'm talking about those plain vanilla things that once looked really well locked down. Now, all of a sudden, start to slip back through because we've introduced a new technology to an old problem. And now we've discovered that that new technology isn't as fully cracked out as we thought it was yet. So it's going to be, I think, some learning pain. And I think most people will dismiss this episode as being applicable to them at the time, only because it's a frontier technology, meaning these technologies are just starting to get really prevalent, really pick up in the last few years. And so that means the pain we're going to start to feel within 5 to 10 years is my guess. Question becomes, what are those critical, like, it's one thing to say you can do it. It's another thing to say, does it meet the criteria of general purpose hackers going to do this on a daily basis? Which usually the criteria for that, is it cheap and is it easy to do and is it reproducible? I think we definitely have reproducible. I would argue we don't necessarily have easy to do yet, because there's a lot of things that still have to go into your favor in order to exert that much control over an environment, right? It's one thing to be able to do it in a test lab and show that it's reproducible in the test lab. It's a whole nother thing to do it in a real world situation. And I don't necessarily know that it's cheap yet, right? It still smells to me like there's a lot of time, investment, and effort needed to research that specific use case to get to a type of outcome that you might want for what I would call full on adversarial machine learning. Now, you might have much more luck meeting the criteria of cheap and easily accessible for just, I want to fool a sensor, and you have maybe an unpredictable outcome that you can't control quite fully. And I think we've seen that all the time. I think that predates adversarial machine learning. But when you think about the growth and the explosion of IoT devices, we have very strong data that correlates to, we also have an explosion of sensors. Sometimes those IoT devices themselves are the sensor. Other times the device will have dozens of sensors. And as those continue to get packaged into more and more of everything that we do, this surface area just keeps kind of growing.
You mentioned price in the show notes. You'll have a link to an article. Researchers use a $5 speaker to hack an IoT device, smartphones and automobiles. Talk a little bit about that, because that gets to the point of what happens when the hack gets so affordable. Like right now, some of these still really, really costly, much like crypto, right? Having to crack a crypto code, just pretty expensive. But what happens when we use a $5 speaker?
Yeah, so the intention here was, again, talking about how do you incrementally gain access into influencing a system without any like real world access, right? So for example, your iPhone could be fully locked. You're not going to get in. You're not going to know the PIN. It's encrypted at rest, all of these things. However, your iPhone is currently running Apple Maps or Google Maps or the maps of your choice. And you want to perturb its environment in such a way that you exert some level of influence over it. So, for example, this might not have any real world outcome for you, but all we want to prove is that we can coerce the device into thinking something it's not supposed to, and then we can keep expanding that use case, right? So when we talk about this for On the Cheap, almost all the devices, almost everyone today that is digitally connected in some way is carrying an accelerometer in their pocket, right? Your Google Maps knows that you're 10 miles over the speed limit because it's watching your accelerometer in relation to the posted speed limit and telling you, hey, slow down. What this article showed, again, in a controlled lab environment, is that I can go buy a $5 speaker. I can put it at a very specific note and frequency, and my accelerometer will register that as movement. And so now I've gotten a sensor that said I went from no movement to a little bit of movement. And so that by itself sounds pretty harmless, sounds pretty benign. What's the big deal? But when you get a little bit more of those things kind of coming up and up, you start to add together those little cheap things in a way that then a more complex attack vector shows itself. And they talked about manipulating the sensors on a Fitbit and similar other IoT devices. And again, you know, what was reported? The Fitbit recorded steps that didn't actually happen. And so like anyone who reads that is going to laugh. They're like, you're off your rocker. This is not an issue. Adversarial machine learning sounds like a joke. And to many use cases like this, you would be correct. Like, who cares that an extra 2 steps were recorded? Like, if you want to cheat yourself that you are athletically fit, there are many other ways to do it without this level of effort. So why bother? But that wasn't the point of that particular article, right? It was just that you could get very cheap and inexpensive things to mutate an environment, to do something that a system wasn't programmed to do. I think on the surface, it's quite a common conclusion to arrive at. We wouldn't question it on its premise. Seems like a pretty normal, digestible thing. But then when that's on a backdrop of what we just talked about with the whole intro to adversarial machine learning and these spectrum of unsolved problems, it starts to look a bit dicier a whole lot quicker.
Well, and I think there's a great example in with all the work I've done since the last time we were on, Christian. You know, I had somebody go through my car, so I put in some Ring cameras. I did some home automation stuff, kind of locked down my security a bunch more. But you know, as I was in there, I got digging through like, hey, I can set my phone that when I get a certain distance, a certain radius from my house to do certain things, or the opposite is true. Like, so when I pull in the driveway, maybe I wanted to do some things that are helpful to me to unlock things and to set things up. If someone with a $5 speaker could spoof my phone, this isn't true, by the way, but let's just say they could. I'm not that good. I don't have automatic locks, so this wouldn't work in my house. But say I did, and they could spoof it to trigger that geo instance, that geofence, to break the geofence. And all of a sudden now I'm somewhere else, but my home has now opened itself up, so to speak. And there's somebody there waiting for that to happen. I don't think that's too far. That's not a stretch. Like, all I have to do is spoof the geofence aspect of that. And boom, it's taken care of. So again, security, convenience, that's great. In my case, we had this conversation where I almost put a smart lock on the door between the garage and the house. And I was like, yeah, this would be great because then I can open it on my phone before I come in so that I don't, because my hands are full. Mm-hmm. That's a convenience thing, right? But then again, spoofed, that opens up the garage door, that opens up the door in between. And so you're right, a very inexpensive solution to create disruption on a convenience, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's spot on.
Right on. I don't think we're that far away. Like,
no, we're not.
Until you put all that, I didn't think about that till you started putting all those things together, and I'm kind of like, oh, wait a minute, geofencing. If I can now, mm-hmm. we may be far away from being able to set a tone on that changes the geofence, right? That's GPS and some other things. But again, that's kind of what I think of like, hey, if it makes me move and they can do a certain number of things,
yeah,
right? Do I really want to trust those those pieces. Same thing for cameras, right? I've got cameras available in watching, but are there things that could be done with those cameras? It's funny. We had movies for years in the 80s and 90s that would do all this. We couldn't do it yet. Like, they would hack in and then change the picture. Think of like Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12, right? They changed the picture to fool the security guard and stuff like that. Now that's actually all those things are possible electronically. You don't even need to, you don't even need to be there to splice into we thought it was cool. Now we're like, oh gosh, man, that's some serious stuff. So, I just think that's maybe a little more real than we think. I think of, I use Sighthound, which is using AI now to start identifying what it's seeing in the picture. So they also have license plate identification and facial. They're doing some stuff with facial recognition. Why wouldn't I say, hey, recognize my face, unlock the front door?
Yeah.
And then how could that be spoofed or trained differently?
Well, how long does it take for me to figure out a good picture of Jim Collison's face that has the right features that I just hold up the door to let myself in? Which they swear can never happen, right? But
well,
what happens if I then 3D print your face? Which how would I do that? Well, if I could get pictures of you head on, from the side, from the other side, like, can I recreate a 3D CAD model of Jim's face and present like your head on a stick?
Right.
Not like in a
Lord of the Rings kind of way.
It sounded very Hunger Games, Game of Thrones-ish, I guess. Yikes.
It did. Yeah, that got dark really, really fast. What else, Christian? Anything else as we think about?
No, I mean, I think that's the brush I wanted to paint. I wanted to do some storytelling. We talked about some fun stories, I think. But,
one more thing. It says to cripple AI. This is another article at Wired. To cripple AI, hackers are turning data against itself. Did you mention that in the?
Yeah. So not specifically. Again, Wired with the rescue here. They're just all over this topic.
I like it.
I know it's unusual too, because I have not cited them in quite a bit in some of the stuff we're doing. But they're basically just calling out that. They called out several of the examples that I stitched together through other articles, right? So they talk about a picture of a turtle is seen as a rifle. A self-driving car blows past a stop sign because a carefully crafted sticker bamboozled its computer vision. An eyeglass frame confuses facial recognition tech into thinking a random dude is actress Milla. Oh, this is embarrassing. Milla Jovovich.
Close enough.
I guess she's famous because I couldn't tell you a thing. So that shows you where my Hollywood knowledge is. But it really just kind of stitches together the spectrum of attacks that the generational machine learning models that we have available to date are going to have to deal with, and they're currently just completely unprepared to deal with it. And they kind of go through a lot of the specific lab examples that we've discussed about how an environment gets mutated and what the risks are. What's interesting is that this article says specifically, quote, there's no reason to panic. Simply slapping these stickers on a stop sign won't crash a self-driving car. He explains that self-driving cars use multiple sensors and algorithms and don't make decisions on any single machine learning model. So although our work can fool a single ML model, it doesn't imply that fooling it is enough to cause physical harm. Well, to me, that says I've proved it. Now I just have to figure out how to make it probable that it happens.
Yeah.
So not a great defense against what we've discussed.
I think we have some interesting times still ahead for this. Everybody, we joke all the time about the robots taking over and, Skynet and those things. And then you hear about some of these things and you're like, I don't know if we're as smart as we think we are, or that AI is as smart as we think it is. Certainly, it has made huge. I mean, we are seeing some really amazing, including, in the Amazon space, having a store that just is able to kind of track your purchases throughout the store. I'm sure there's ways to fool that, right? I'm sure there is. But it's apparently in a lot of tests, it seemed to be working pretty well. So, we're beginning to make progress in those areas. I think sometimes we paint this world of that's happening like one day we wake up and it's different. And I actually think it's it's more like the frog in the boiling water that we just get, the temperature just keeps getting turned up over time. I also think it's going to take a lot longer for any of that stuff to happen than we think.
Right.
But it will have significant impact on us by the time it gets here. It will have some significant impact to us and on us in greater ways than we think. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure, I'm 50. I got 30 good years left on the planet. Let's just be, if I take care of myself. Will I see some of that? If I were to ask you that question, Christian, next 30 years, I'm not asking you to make a prediction on any single technology, but from a significant standpoint, a significance AI to be the real do we're talking about. Do you think I get to see it in the next 30 years?
I'm bullish on it.
Mario?
I'm bullish on it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll find out. We'll have done 10 podcasts in 30 years. So we'll be
there you have it. They'll be able to start publishing my show for me. I won't have to do anything.
Maybe by 90, maybe by my 90th birthday, we'll have show number 90 out for folks. I do actually, this is an area to be, to bring this back home. AI, we're starting to see a lot of language recognition now, right? When we think about facial and language, but what I do in podcasting this is super important. And, we've talked about deep fakes. I think we've talked about that here on this show in the past of being able to create deep fake on both of those. But I think there's some good things that we can, by the way, this current Windows update that's going on right now,
brutal.
It's tough.
Brutal.
Yikes.
I did not even mention on this show, which I probably would have if we didn't do such a thematic show to the Microsoft crypto API debacle. Just beyond Yaga.
This is making me reboot twice. So Ken brought up an interesting point that this is the first update for folks that were pushed over to Windows 10 from Windows 7. Like, this is their first update. Welcome to Windows 10. By the way, a 2 reboot, pretty massive update that is taking, and 2 reboots that I know of. I just started the second one on this. I thought, while we're talking, I'll start updating just to see how bad this is. It's not okay in the span of things. It's not ruined anything yet, but it's taken a while to get this. I have a pretty fast machine, and it's taken a good chunk of the show to get this thing, at least a half an hour. So I kind of wonder, will I see it? And I'm not as bullish as you are. I actually think it'll be a lot slower than we think. I'm more excited. I'd rather us pour time, maybe because of my age, into the biomechanical or biotech world where we actually get to fix ourselves.
I mean, that's happening, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's slower, though. I think it's slower and it's harder to do than facial recognition sure. I remember what I was going to say. Back to the voice and facial, there are things in archives. Like, I want to go back and be able to find things I said when I said them and have it take me right to that spot on demand. Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. And we're kind of getting there. I've got a team working on that here at a university and using some of the Amazon services that are available to them. And we're making some progress. And it's not great right now, but we're in the early phases and stages of it. I think I've seen some stuff from both Microsoft on this. Microsoft's got a good jump on it, actually, which sounds weird, but they actually have a really good jump on this and are doing some really, really interesting things of being able to take you to the spot. I can actually put like, hey, I want these words and I want you to cut that out and make a video, and it just does it. And you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Some great stuff. Christian, thanks again for jumping in here. Always good to see you on Cyber Frontiers. A couple reminders for individuals. If you're looking for high-speed hosting, both data and web, Christian does both. Kind of optimized for podcasters. Great service. if you're thinking about doing that, or you need help with anything along those lines, maplegrovepartners.com. They power the lightning fast.
We are the platform for podcasters.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's still spooky how, like, when I go to update plugins, they're like, boom, done. Like I click them, boom, boom,
yes.
boom, done.
I now measure directly the average guy's response time latencies, and then the what I will call the eastern seaboard of the United States, the response times are averaging 420 milliseconds right now. So that's for end to end, like it's on your screen. So, I'll take it.
Yeah, no, super great. MapleGrovePartners.com. Just reach out to Christian. He'll get you set up as well. If you have questions for us, send us an email. Jim@theaverageguy.tv. The updates are finally done. Christian@theaverageguy.tv. Find me on Twitter @JCollison. You can find him @Borg Whisperer. And one more thing, since we only do this every 2 months, if you're thinking about it and you liked it, share it. Just share it with somebody. I think these was a unique enough kind of show from a podcast perspective that for the person in your life that's kind of that cybersecurity and AI and machine learning nerd, they might like listening to it. So get out there and get it done. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time we are. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
Joe asked me by then you can get antique tags for my Civic. Yeah. Civic goes to my daughter. I took the Civic into a car wash the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It was really dirty. And he's like, hey, what year is this? I was like, 06. How many miles? 216,000 miles on that car. He was like, sweet. He goes, I just love Hondas. They just keep going. And I'm like, it runs exactly the same today as it did when I bought it brand new in 06. So I've had some really good luck with that Civic. The daughter gets it here this summer, and we'll take it back to school, and it'll be hers. She's gonna inherit it. Yeah, it's a good little car. I'll have Phil check it out to make sure my son have it. It's got I think it's got a chain on it, not a timing belt, so that should be fine. But 2 reboots to get that you have this when you're doing Windows. You got that. You have 4 updates that need to be done. Download, they're big, and then including a .NET update, which is and that may be because we use some .NET for some of the some of the crypto stuff that we do. And then you log in and it doesn't tell you right away, but then it's like if you go to security section, you got to reboot again.
Rip.
2 reboots. Not a good thing.
Sometimes 2 isn't better than 1.
Not a good thing. If you're listening live, I appreciate your optimism. If you're listening live, I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. We'll see you Thursday, 8 p.m. Central for Home Gadget Geeks. And Ryan and Bob will be there with kind of our final CES segment. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. And I don't know where my mouse is, but good night.
Good night.